7 years ago, a group of endurance enthusiasts, led by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, took part in a challenge to run and cycle 600 kilometers through the Namibian desert. Today, the legacy of that life-affirming trip lives on. Each year, within INEOS, a small group of volunteers are given the chance to sign up for an epic adventure that echoes the original. Those that take part must prepare themselves for pain, sweat, tears, and possibly the greatest experience of their lives. Namibia is not your standard tourist destination. It receives barely 1 million visitors annually. But every year, a cohort of graduates from INEOS journey there to pit themselves against the elements in a 6-day endurance challenge.
I think it's important to test yourself in life, and this particular program does that.
INEOS are a company who are very out there and innovative. I definitely have never seen a program like this at any company that I've been to. It's fun, it's amazing, it's an adventure.
However, due to the pandemic, the grads from 2020 and 2021 had to postpone their Namibian adventures.
I think it was really difficult for the graduates to stay motivated for the whole program.
COVID has definitely put a big bump in the route with regards to training.
The team had to put a lot of effort in to make sure that we kept them totally motivated and inspired on this whole journey.
The two separate groups were flying into the unknown, but they were doing it as a team that had trained together for years. Although looking down on the barren landscape, they started to question their decision.
So you get on a plane in Johannesburg, what seems to be a normal Boeing 737 or something, all looks quite civilized, all looks quite serious. And then you fly 2 hours over the desert. You're lucky if you see a city, let alone a road.
And that was really when it properly hit home that, yeah, this is going to be tough, questioning whether I really want to be here. But then we landed into the airport, probably the smallest airport I've ever been to. And then that was when you met the full team, and that sort of settled me down. They were so welcoming, and they all knew my name. The people that I'd never ever met before, high-fiving and really sort of got you upbeat and ready to go. That carried on throughout the trip. Some of the nicest people and most motivating people that I've ever met.
Rounded up and reassured, they headed for the start, a remote hotel bang in the middle of the Skeleton Coast.
On arrival, everyone was really excited to be here.
I can't believe we're finally here. It's been like 2 years of preparation and 36 hours or more of travel, and now we're here.
The teams had a few hours to check their kit, adjust seats, fix gel pads, and acclimatise before embarking on their crazy adventure.
How's that, eh? All you need now is an engine.
I guess I had sort of visions of Lawrence of Arabia, mile upon mile of sand dunes, blazing hot sunshine. The reality of where we landed in Walvis Bay is it's not really like that. It's very coastal, and I think the first thing that struck us all was it was actually quite cold.
Enjoy the cold weather, because it is definitely going to get hotter. But if you do go swimming, it's probably about 14 degrees, so it may or may not be your bag, but if you want to go for it, go for it.
I don't know what demons drive us to this, but it's the same demons that make us cycle across the desert, climb mountains, and swim in the flipping cold ocean.
Bloody freezing. I think the gratitude of being here was pretty evident to me, which is fantastic to see. And I think that also then changes the mindset going into the challenge. The fact that it's a little tricky, that it's a little hot, that the wind is blowing, that there's thick sand, but I'm here. I'm actually doing this.
We're going to be doing every K with all of you, all the way through.
We're here to help you guys, so if there's anything we can do to make the ride more comfortable with regards to the bikes and with regards to the feeding, then reach out to us and just come over to the trailer and have a word.
The challenge of this particular program is to finish every single K by yourself, whether it be walking or riding. I've seen some really unlikely people smash it. And they believed in themselves, number one, and they never gave up, ever. Forget about the distance, forget about the time. There is no rush. It's just from one camp to the next. So I promise you now, everyone that's here right now can make it and will make it. But you must believe in yourself. Have a good dinner.
Nervous energy, I think, probably was the word of the day. On day one, I was freezing cold. I saw a couple of people with gloves on. There's fog overhead, so no one really knows what to expect.
I'm ready for the deserty thing because it's not desert temperatures yet. Ask me in 2 hours and I might change my mind.
Both teams of graduates had waited years for this moment, so a bit of sea mist wasn't going to dampen their spirits. With 350 kilometers ahead of them, they began their adventure. First, they would head northeast through the Messam crater. The following day, they would run and cycle 72 kilometers into the heart of the Namib Desert and the base of the vast Brandberg mountain. On day 3, the teams would climb over 2,000 meters to the summit, where they would bivouac and then descend the next day. Day 5 would see the grads undertake a full marathon, followed by a 35-kilometer bike ride to the Uchab River Valley. The final half-marathon would take them through the jagged maze of the Erongo Hills and onto the plains of Damaraland for an 80-kilometer ride to the finish line.
Cycling through, and there's about 40 people in a line. Everyone's smiling, I think a bit worryingly easy. Everyone's thinking, what's going to happen here?
Got the wind in our backs, it's easy peasy today. Ooh, is that coffee on the go?
Winter has arrived in the Namib. Thick pea soup mist this morning, northwesterly blowing off the coastline, so kind of driving the mist inland. But the sun has burnt the mist off now, and we've got these amazing lichen fields outside the car. There's some really spectacular scenery, like really majestic, with the Brandberg off to the east that's kind of looming.
It's getting hot, but we're up to the next stop. So, get a good drink and carry on.
The mist dissipated just as the graduates had to suffer their first sandy climb. It was almost like someone had planned it to be a bit of a challenge. As the groups got to grips with the desert conditions, the train of cyclists stretched out. But this isn't a race. There are no prizes out here. It's all about getting through the kilometers together whilst taking in the stark beauty of the Namib.
It is the most awesome scenery, the most awesome day. Day one, we're still enjoying it.
The group's done well. I think the rest are a little bit up the road. They're probably close to the camp. I think they're struggling because of the heat, and I know from past experience the Scots, they come from like the super northern latitude. They see maybe 3 or 4 degrees in summer. It's probably 28 or 30 degrees out here at the moment, so it's pretty brutal for somebody who's not acclimatized to this, and they're doing really well if you take that into consideration. How many are you having tonight?
No beers tonight.
No beers tonight?
No.
Have a whiskey with me.
I'll have a whiskey up the Brandberg.
On the top?
At the top.
So that's a deal.
Deal.
Are you carrying it or am I carrying it?
You can carry it.
All right, sounds fair.
I think that was probably one of the tougher days, personally. Just getting accustomed to the heat and also doing this at the same time. In the tough parts of that first day, if you were thinking about, oh, this is only day one, how am I going to get to the end of that? I quickly learned that, no, you just take it in day by day, chunk by chunk.
After their 65-kilometre introduction, the teams arrived at their first desert camp on the edge of the Messam crater. It was a sight for sore eyes and sore bums.
Guys, refreshments, refreshments, €2.
We're seeing the little peaks of the tent over the hill.
You grab your bottle? Yes. And I'll grab the bike.
I think I might have a beer or two.
Day one. Huh? Over.
Next on the agenda was an introduction to camp, and these weren't just any camps.
When we got to the camp tonight, there was beers, cold drinks, snacks, nice showers, which I wasn't expecting. You know, I was expecting a week of wet wipes, but the camp setup is just awesome.
The guys that organise this, and the teams that are sitting behind us, both in terms of the camp and also the guys that support during the day, it's just amazing. It's completely seamless.
Well done, guys. Day one. I told you it'd be easy. But today was a pretty solid day. I know it starts off quite easy, but everyone did really well. You should all be super proud of yourselves.
After a hearty meal, it was time to hit the hay, because day 2 was where things started to heat up. Namibia is known as the land God made in anger, and it receives less than 1 centimetre of rain a year. So when it comes to running a half marathon through the Namib, it was vital to stick together and depart early.
Key for an early start this morning to beat the heat. It's going to be an absolute scorcher today. I would say temperatures around the mid-30s for probably mid-morning onwards.
You guys ready? Yes. Ready. Yep, oh yes. Let's go. Thanks guys for the campsite.
We left at 5:30. That was absolutely stunning. I've never seen stars as clear as this in my life.
Beautiful walk, the sun rising as a group. All of us set off together for about 7 kilometres, walking through these grassland, which is really unusual for Namibia.
After a 7-kilometre warm-up walk, there was time for a quick break and a moment to take in the incredible scenery.
Never seen anything like it, to be honest. It's like running through a movie set, something you see on the TV, but everywhere you look it's fairly surreal.
But they couldn't get distracted for long, as there was a half marathon to finish.
It was actually really enjoyable, and that was probably the first time that you could sort of take in all of your surroundings without having to worry about being on the bike and hitting some sand. So that was the first time that you really appreciated everything around about you.
Before INEOS, I wasn't a runner at all. Even my wife doesn't believe that I'm doing this. Namibia completely changed my life and my lifestyle, and pretty permanently.
So I think it's really, really important that the grads form a cohesive group before they come out here, and I think throughout this trip that at some point you will be carried, and at some point you will be carrying somebody.
It's 100% endurance. The mindset that you're going to need to go from 6 o'clock in the morning until potentially 6 o'clock that night for 6 days, over and over again. It plays on the mind all the time, which I think has a really long-term benefit with regards to how do you deal with all sorts of things. The concept of breaking down the problem, understanding what it is, and then working on fixing it.
Around 2 hours later, the runners were completing their first desert half.
It's really nice coming in and having everybody clapping round. And I think it was really nice at the end, you know, when some of the folks that were coming in last were getting clapped in. It's brilliant. I think it's a really good energy around the group. It's great.
One of the vital elements to any endurance challenge is sustenance. The Marathon des Sables is one of the most famous desert challenges, partly because you have to carry all your own meals. But not here in the Namib.
The guys are out for about 3 hours, so they need a bit of good food, bread and some proper cheese and tomatoes and onions. Good stuff.
Local cycle touring company, Cycletech, have a specially adapted catering trailer, complete with water tanks, refrigerators, and even hot coffee. And the grads were all taking full advantage of the calories on offer.
This is the business, mate. This is running food. This is what gets us through the desert.
As the teams prepped to get back on the bikes, two things were on everyone's mind.
You can feel the sun, which is kind of started to burn a bit. Also, there's going to be a lot of sand. I don't like the sand. So we'll see how we will manage that.
Hit the road, quick pit stop. More than 2.9 seconds, not quite F1 standard, but you know, needs must, it is hot here.
This was also the group's first proper sighting of the Brandberg, a keen reminder of what lay in store. The route is designed to be tough, and cycling towards the base of a mountain in the desert really ticked that box. When there are rains here, the water runs off the mountain, forming riverbeds, and that means sand. Lots of it.
Our first run-in with the sand on day 2 mountain biking, I think that put a lot of fear in a lot of people.
I mean, everybody, I think, eventually fell over at one point in time. Usually when you think you've got it, you don't, and that's when you fall over. Or you're trying a little bit too hard to get through the sand and you run out of energy and find yourself covered in sand.
It was that kind of mid-afternoon on the second day, the sun beating down, it was super hot. I looked behind me and I couldn't see anybody, and I looked in front of me and I couldn't see anybody, and I was having to kind of stop every 50 or so meters because we were going into deep sand, and that was the first moment where I just remember thinking, geez, this is tough. You know, I just want to get to the end of today.
Having made it through the sand and sweltering heat, the grads started rolling into camp.
But then you get to the end of the day and you get into the camp and they come out and meet you with a cold beer, and then you have those first few swigs, and suddenly all of that's forgotten and you're joking and laughing about what happened. And then the guys behind you start coming in and bringing them beers, and all of that sweat and the little bits of crying that you did maybe during the day are all forgotten. And that was pretty much the theme of every day, I would say.
That was a tough one. There were some really tired, cooked people. People were very happy to lie down and recover, because the next day, of course, we needed to climb the Brandberg.
With the last of the graduates safely over the finish line, there wasn't much time to relax, because prep needed to begin for tomorrow's large granite task.
You're going to use about 2.5 to 3 liters of this to get you to the summit and back. You're going to get issued with a mattress, sleeping bag with a thermal inner inside. It might get quite cold tomorrow night. Then backpack. You shouldn't be carrying more than 14, 15 kilos. If you're doing a lot more than that, you've probably got a lot of stuff in your pack that you don't want.
Didn't actually appreciate how big it was until we came into camp and we were sitting underneath the Brandberg at night. It was absolutely terrifying. This thing was amazing. It was huge.
With their bags packed, there was little time to dwell on what lay ahead. After another night under the stars, the grads were up early to get a head start on the heat.
Okay, everybody, let's go, 6 o'clock, camp, we'll see you tomorrow.
So the first bit we got, again, starting off pretty early in the morning, everybody sort of going up with your head torches, and you're just sort of following the light that's sort of in front of you.
Weighed down with an extra 15 kilos, ascending steep, challenging terrain, the past 2 days were catching up with some of the group.
This is exactly what you need when you're feeling a wee bit under the weather after sleeping outside all night. Massive hike up a mountain and 30-degree heat.
It's just after 7 and it's beautiful up here. We've probably got about 3 hours of shade left. we're going to make the most of it. Crack on.
As the sun rose, the climbers made their way up a steep valley, a route chosen for the shade it offered, not for its ease of ascent.
Going up, you had to build trust in yourself, looking out for the loose rocks and gravel, appreciating the grip that you've actually got. There's times that you're going up the sort of sheets of granite thinking, how am I going to get up here? But you're gaining that trust in yourself.
Nice, Jensen. One piece at a time.
Very rocky, big boulders at times, really having to like get a leg up and kind of push ourselves up over.
Being such a geological anomaly, the climate on the Brandberg is different to the rest of the Namib. For that reason, it's been a source of shelter and food to humankind for thousands of years. Evidence of these early inhabitants was a nice distraction from the toil.
Worth the climb.
Aside from the prehistoric art, short breaks helped the groups manage the uphill slog. And after 6 hours, they reached first lookout.
I think the thing about it was you kind of looked up and you thought, there's the summit, it's not too far away. And it was only really when you first started climbing and you reached the bit that you thought at the bottom was the summit after 2 hours, and you realized you couldn't even see the next, the next summit was a little bit further ahead, but that wasn't the summit either. And it was only really when you got to the end of the day that you realized there was a series of climbs to get to the top of this massive rock.
Fire Mountain has a spiritual meaning to the Damara people, and it's easy to see why. It's a place that has to be treated with the utmost respect.
You need to get yourself a rock, you need to spit on it, and then you need to place it on the cairn, and as you do so, you need to honor the mountain. Put your hand on the rock, honor the mountain.
There was no other people. We didn't see any other people going up the mountain the entire 2 days we were there. So we were truly in the middle of nowhere.
After 10 hours of hiking, the grads reached base camp. They would sleep 400 meters below the summit, and the Königstein would be attempted at first light.
A bloody good effort. Really nice to get everyone here at the same time. It's the first time ever. Hey. So that's pretty cool. And with plenty of time to spare, but it's plenty of time to take this beautiful place in. I'm not going to rush it anymore.
The mountain had certainly earned their respect. So much so that some of the group wanted to have a beer with it.
And then on top of it, Len wanted to open his, but I guess he was quite enthusiastic, and he put the devil on a rock, probably a quite sharp one, and it just burst open. Then we only had 2 beers, but we shared a bit. There was a guide who was quite fond of it because he licked a bit of it from the rocks. And he liked it like that.
This was the best beer on the mountain, full of minerals and rocks. And this is what that's all about, huh? And when you suck beer, it makes you even drunker.
I'd say we had more laughter than anything else. I mean, there was a lot of tears, a lot of people suffering, struggling. Everyone has a dark moment, but the reality is, the overriding sound through all of it is laughter and enjoyment. People really enjoy helping and supporting one another and getting through these challenges, and I'm no exception to that.
Before the sun dropped out of sight, there was still time to do some stretching and settle down with some home comforts.
Brought a wee gift along for the troops, a wee Glenlivet 15, just to mark the occasion of making it to the top of the Brandberg. So we've just shared a little dram, and now I'm just going around the camp offering to the guides and those that have supported us through this whole thing. So, Slange Va.
You're going to leave all your kit. You're just going to bring some water, and we're going to go up to the summit for sunrise.
and then we'll come back down again, have a quick breakfast, quick pack up, and start our descent.
Emerging from a very uncomfortable night's sleep, the teams rallied and headed straight for the summit. After a scramble to the top of Namibia, it was a special moment to see sunrise over the desert from 2,500 meters. Now came the easy part, just 10 hours of steep, treacherous downhill.
In your mind, going up must be much harder than coming down, but of course in reality it's not necessarily the case, and I think a lot of us felt that the going down was actually, if not the equal, probably the tougher brother of going up. It was certainly much tougher on the knees.
The descent was broken up by a pit stop at Longi Pools. Here, giant holes in the granite had been transformed into Namibian bathtubs full of cool rainwater.
It was about taking it slowly but carefully, essentially getting everybody down in one piece while sort of going at good speed.
I haven't took my socks off since we started, so we'll see what they look like when that happens. My feet are out of sight, out of mind.
Wherever you go on the Brandberg, it was vital to stick close to the local guides. Getting lost here could get serious very quickly.
Don't look down and don't look up, I think. Just follow the feet in front of you, and then you'll get there in the end, slowly but surely.
There's someone at the front who knows where they're going.
Yeah.
And they know how far it is. No one else knows, so ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
You can run as many marathons as you want out here. You can be as fit as you want to and tackle the mountain. The mountain will determine just how fast you can go up it. So nobody wrestles with the Brandberg. The Brandberg wrestles you into submission.
Fortunately, after a full day on their feet, the final hikers were closing in on camp.
You legend! Yeah, hey, you legend! Yeah, grab one of these. Take a day. There's one there.
As you came off the bottom of that mountain into that last half a mile of trek, one of the camp guys came out with a big crate of cold beer and walked about 500 meters up the path to meet us so that we didn't have to wait till we got all the way in the camp.
Both teams had just hiked Namibia's highest peak, 5,000 meters of ascent and descent. They had survived their 2 days on Fire Mountain.
Cheers. Sorry, I started. How rude of me. Cheers.
However, there was little time to relax, as day 5 of the challenge was now only one starry sleep away, and things were about to get a whole lot harder. The 5th day of the challenge was set up to be one of the toughest of them all. After hiking just shy of a marathon, it was now their turn to run one.
The build-up to the marathon was probably, for most people, that was the biggest mental challenge. Everybody seemed to have fixated in their mind that this was going to be the tough bit.
We've always enjoyed giving people an opportunity to test themselves, expand their horizons and challenge themselves to do something they didn't think they could do. And equally, it's a great way of getting through Jim's point of like when you take the brakes off, this almost forces you to do that in a way because it's so far out of most people's comfort zones that they'd never have even contemplated it, let alone worked out how they were going to get through it.
As the sun rose, the quicker the grads could get through the next 42 kilometres, the less time they would get baked in the Namibian oven.
As Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Today, Phil tells us there's 3 punches. This is a point-to-point marathon and it's uphill. That's the main punch, that's the gut punch. There's soft sand and it's going to go through 30 degrees, which is the uppercut that finishes us off.
Oh, that's amazing. 22 kilometres. Only another 20 to go.
As they were all finding out, keeping the legs moving was becoming more and more difficult.
Considering what we've done the last days, they are okay, but in normal life I would never run a marathon on this.
I was nervous about the marathon. I'm not the best runner in the world. I strained my calf pretty badly. By 21k, it had gone completely. The guides and the support team did their best to kind of strap it up, but it was essentially a couple of hours of pain.
Apparently it's a little muscle at the back of the knee. Popliteus. Didn't know I had one until now. Went first day, but it's just sore.
You can go for a run and on the 10k mark, a sore knee. Some people will stop. Oh no, I can't go any further. But if you've been there and worked through it, you can stop, look at the knee, maybe get a massage, maybe just walk a little bit, change your shoes, change your socks, and you'll find that injury disappears after 5 more Ks and your mind's forgotten about it. But once you start to learn that those problems don't stick around all day, the brain lets you go and you carry on.
If we're ready, let's go.
Conventional wisdom would advise a long period of rest after 4 days of extreme endurance. But somehow, every single graduate on both trips defied logic, drawing strength from each other to complete the 26.2 miles.
It's no easy challenge, even for people that get paid to do this for a living, you know? We train every day to be fit on the bike, but not in conditions like this. It's really hard. Soft underfoot, and you know that you can't get out the sun, you can't get out the heat.
When you do a long run like that, the rest of the day you just feel like your central nervous system is telling your body to not do anything.
I always think of the bike as like the most beautifully designed torture machine, because like everyone has a breaking point as far as wattage goes. But with running, it's just the breaking point is just like, okay, how much more pounding can you take?
How long can you keep your hand in the fire? Quite literally out here.
And that fire was now starting to claim some victims.
Nick, I think it's just a little bit of overexertion, and the wind is really bad out here, and humidity is very low, almost zero, so the guys doesn't realize they sweat a lot.
While Nick was nursing his heat exhaustion, stomachs were being turned elsewhere in the tent.
And then it was at that point that I took my shoes off and realised quite the state that my feet were in. Huge blisters, so painful.
With blisters needing attention, Pat stepped up to prove he was willing to go where few others would.
We'll just try and get as much fluid out. We'll drain it tonight again. It's obviously going to build up some more fluid. But this way the skin won't tear any further. So you leave this unattended, and all it does is it just keeps delaminating and just keeps filling with fluid to fill the space. This is the price for a desert marathon.
I think that was probably the only part of the trip where I kind of thought, oh, what am I doing? This is like horrible. Why am I putting myself through this?
The grads were patched up just in time to set off for the last 35 kilometres of the day. Now was the time to channel your inner badass, because these were the hard yards. No matter how hard it got, there was always a backstop in the shape of the ever-present, ever-patient Pat.
The adaptation with her is unbelievable. So she's figuring out little things. She's figuring out how to push her weight back. She's made it through all the tricky sections. You know, she's applying herself to the task at hand, which is great. It's great to see. And it's really fun for me to see as well, because I mean, she was really like a newbie when she started the trip. And I think she's going to be a really confident mountain biker by the time we're done. It's pretty epic, right?
The final section for the day was downhill and meant the grads could let go of the brakes.
And then you were just sort of opened up to loose rock, downhill, technical ride, and that was absolutely amazing because we were just able to sort of let it go and enjoy it. We're obviously taking a bit of care in the line and things like that, but yeah, you were able to get a bit of speed down there. So that was a sort of pivotal point for me where it went from sort of so low and doubting myself to actually, I'm away up here, I'm absolutely loving it, and that was an amazing feeling.
After 78 kilometres, the day was finally done, and everyone was relieved to reach the overnight camp in the Uchab River Valley.
Well bloody done, man. Hey, super. Not too bad. The sun's still high.
After that point, getting into the camp and realising that I'd overcome that, I kind of thought, yeah, I've got it now, because that left us with the final day and there was no way that I was ever going to stop on the last day, no chance.
It had been another gruelling day. It was time to take stock of the war wounds. Some of those wounds needed tending to, something Campbell had begun to regret.
Yeah, I do feel how tight it is and how deep your thumbs are into my leg. Ah! No, it's not.
Wait till I come to your tent tonight.
No! Bite the stick. Bite the stick. Ah!
I'm not going to go see the physio.
After some rehydration and recuperation, there were a few last words of advice before bed.
We've got one more day left. We go straight down this valley, beautiful valley as the sun rises. At the moment, the wind is perfect. I'm sure it's going to be the same. It's going to be on our back all the way. Easy peasy, easy sailing. And then we're done. Then 2 nights at a lodge, swimming pool, bar, whatever you like. Just get the through tomorrow. Okay?
The final day of the challenge was a long one and would require everyone to tap into their dwindling reserves of energy.
We were told yesterday was the longest day, doesn't include a marathon. There is some concern that today might actually be the longest day, so we'll see how it pans out.
My feet were just done. I had nothing else left, and the pain was just so much that I just had to sort of keep going, sort of on my toes. And it was at that stage that was the first time that we actually brought out my playlist for music, and I think that was where I was just sort of in my own little world, just singing away to myself and just getting through it step by step, slowly but surely.
It's times like these when team spirit really starts to count.
I was amazed at how well the group got along. People were happy to admit that they were having a tough time, they were sore, they were tired, they struggled, knowing that you weren't going to sort of throw them under the bus. You could put an arm around them and maybe tell them some sort of encouraging words.
I don't feel my legs. I try to fly with my arms.
Snickers.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Cheers, my man. Bye-bye.
My knees are like killing me, but we're still going on.
Fundamentally, INEOS works off everyone pulling their weight, pulling forward, pulling in the same direction. It's not a race, it's about completing it, taking on the challenge and succeeding. There's no medals, there's no winner, there's no first over the line. Some of the greatest moments you see are when graduates go back to help other grads who are struggling, or they stop just to allow them to catch up and get back into the group and keep them moving. It's all about the teamwork and camaraderie from it all.
They just really had a natural team mindset. Having a strong team around you gives an individual strength as well.
Energy was at an all-time low, but morale was at an all-time high. And before they knew it, they were 21 kilometers down and their running was done.
I don't need to run again for a very long time. Oh, wow.
What's the secret to being the ultimate badass?
Having a good group of badasses around you, dragging you along.
Good job. Hey, you beast. Two holes and 3 knees, you smashed it.
The end was in sight. All that lay between the grads and the finish was 80 kilometers. And at this stage, it was all about damage limitation.
If it was a choice between chamois cream and sun cream, I could only pick one for today, I would take the chamois. But that is because of my current situation, and I cannot advise everybody to make the same choice.
Lubed up and ready to go, the teams hit the trail for the conclusion to their Namibian adventure. However, the desert had one final examination for the bikers.
Once that final run was done, the wind just changed. The temperature picked up, and I think Phil had just sort of warned us, yeah, this is going to be tough going. So final 80k.
We realised that we were all about to cycle into a 15 to 20 knot headwind. By this stage, I think everybody was ready. They break it down in their head and just go, right, we just need to get through this a little bit piece by piece.
I think that was probably the fastest bike ride I did. The faster I cycle, the less breaks I take, the sooner I can start to recover.
Wind, sand and aching limbs aside, they could taste the finish.
I think there'll be a few drunk tonight. We've been good so far this week. Maybe a second gin and tonic, do you think?
Plan tonight is to get very drunk. Everything will be over with. Finishing line's almost in sight, so lots of beer.
By now, with over 300 kilometers of grind behind them, and the adventure almost over, the teams could let go and savor the moment.
There's not a lot of people who get a chance to come to Namibia, period, let alone doing anything like this. When I tell people in other businesses, I'm going to be gone for the next week and a half because of, and I explain this trip, and it's just, their eyes get big and they just can't believe that, that something like this is made available to us and made possible.
3 years ago, the farthest I ran was like 5 kilometers, I think. And you push your boundaries further and further. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
What I found from this, no matter what, I don't have to be the fastest, I don't have to be the best, but I can keep going and keep doing it and keep pushing myself.
I can do so much more than I would have thought is possible.
What this trip really shows you is that the physical strength, everybody's going to be tired. Whether or not you're going to make it from point A to point B is if you make the decision to push yourself harder. I know I can do this, I can get this done, I can do anything I want to.
Take it. You can do it. Bite off more than you can chew. As Jim says, take off the brakes, go for it.
Everybody had came across the line together, all friends. It was very, very special, very emotional.
Everyone was hugging each other, and to be honest, it took me a while to grasp it.
I thought I would have this reaction, like almost crying, we made it. But actually, you were so into this running and cycling, I had the feeling like it wasn't done.
Suddenly you realize that was the last day. Tomorrow we're not going to get up and do this again. We're going to somehow, we're starting the journey back to our everyday lives.
I guess if there was a 7th or an 8th day, I would try to do it.
This is a trip of a lifetime, and it's more of an adventure.
Life's about adventure, and this event taught us that we can go out and be adventurous. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Just a baby cry. But yeah, such a
I think that bond that was created throughout the week intensified as you were going through it, and everybody became close. I mean, it had been 2 years that we'd all been in the Teams calls, virtual events and things like that, and that was just sort of encapsulating it all, and the emotions that were there were just amazing, and the sense of achievement was absolutely brilliant. Probably the proudest that I'll ever be.